So what I want to do is just take a look at some common emotions that surface when our way isn't working. I think this was true for Peter. I know it's true for many of you. I know it's true for myself. And so I want to talk through a few of these emotions that I think God gives us to indicate that something in our life is out of alignment and it needs attention. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, meaning that you could probably add another half a dozen emotions to this if you wanted to, but these are 4 emotions that I consistently see as a pastor and that I've personally experienced when my way wasn't working. So think of these emotions as like lights on a dashboard that are trying to get your attention. That God gives us emotions to signal that something is out of sync. Like the word emotion simply means to move. That's what the word means, to move. And our emotions are moving us somewhere, and if we'll stop and pay attention to them, it can make a big difference. But a lot of us haven't been taught to think of emotions that way. We've been taught there's only certain ways that you should feel, and there are certain ways that you shouldn't feel, and if you feel a way that you shouldn't feel, you should stop feeling that way and start feeling a different way, and so we don't really stop and look at it. So think of these emotions as ways that God gets your attention. My wife and I right now, we both happen to be in this season where we both have vehicles that have more than 100,000 miles on them. Some of you know what this is. It seems like something is always going wrong with them. And right now, I checked it before I spoke. We have 2 check engine lights, 1 low coolant indicator, I don't even know what that is, and another that's like a triangle with an exclamation point in the center of the triangle. And I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing if there's an exclamation point, it's like your dashboard yelling at like, no, seriously, like your dashboard's trying to get your attention. But they've been that way, and we get something fixed and it comes back on, we get something fixed and it comes back on. They've been that way long enough that at this point it's like Christmas lights. It's like decoration for the dashboard. We don't really see it. And so for some of you, for some of us, these emotions, we just look at them and we're like, well, yeah, but doesn't everybody feel this way? I mean, yes, that emotion describes me, but isn't that just part of the human condition? And so I want to talk about these emotions, understanding that God as the manufacturer has hardwired some of these things into our system so that when they surface, it gets our attention. So not a comprehensive list, but things I consistently see. Number 1 is discouragement. It's a loss of confidence and enthusiasm. Again, you might look at discouragement and say, well, I feel a little bit discouraged every day. Well, yeah, okay. I mean, things happen. But this is a ongoing state where you just have lost confidence and you've lost enthusiasm. You just don't have much passion anymore. And if you have lived this way for a while, then chances are you know it. Like you're just struggling with a lack of confidence, a lack of enthusiasm. And when you live this way long enough, it just surfaces. It begins to affect you and the people around you. And there's lots of biblical examples that you could look to, people who went through this: David, Elijah, Moses, there's plenty of them. Here's a second emotion that will surface on the dashboard is fatigue. It's just this extreme physical and mental tiredness that comes from a prolonged period or concentrated exertion. Like you were okay for a while, but then the weeks turned into months, and maybe then the months turned into years, and this now just is who you are. You are just worn out. You've tried to work things your way, and you worked at things your way for a long time, and after enough time of things not working, it's just left you this way. I think of Elijah when he sits under the tree and he just says to God, just take my life. I don't want to live anymore. He's just so tired of it all. And another emotion would be frustration. It's being upset or annoyed, especially because of an inability to change or achieve something. You've worked at it. You've tried to see some gains, but you don't see any difference. It doesn't seem to be working. And the more you work at it without seeing anything, the more frustrated you become. And frustration is one of those things, because it's connected to anger, that begins to seep over into every area of your life. And so now you've just become this frustrated, irritable, easily upset person. One other emotion that I think would show up on the dashboard is anxiety. It's a feeling of worry or unease, typically when facing an imminent event or an uncertain outcome that you don't have any control over. Like you see that it's not working and you know you can't do anything about it. Like you can't change some things. And the more you look around, maybe at our culture or some things in our world, the more you're just aware that, man, things are going a direction and I don't feel like I feel powerless to do anything. And then you feel anxiety. Or you feel like you have no control over someone's feelings towards you. And it creates all this anxiety. And the more you try to control their feelings, the less feelings they have for you. And it's just created this sense of anxiety and your way of handling it, it's not working. And so those 4 emotions, I think God has given us, again, you could add to it, but discouragement, fatigue, frustration, anxiety, I've just consistently seen those, especially in the last number of years. I think for Peter, he was feeling it. I think he was discouraged because even though he's a professional fisherman, he hasn't caught anything. I think he's tired and worn out, and he's stayed up all night long. He's physically exhausted. He's frustrated. You can hear it, I think, in the story. Frustrated with the circumstances, frustrated with the timing of Jesus coming. Now he wants to go fish. Anxious because why would the next time be any different than the last time? He's been fishing all night. He just got his nets put away. He's got to get them back out. And why would this time be different than the last time? And so he says to Jesus, we've been out all night fishing. I haven't caught anything. And again, I think he's expecting Jesus to jump in and say, oh, all right, okay, fair enough. Hey, A for effort. What can you do? But Jesus doesn't say anything. And so Peter finishes the sentence. But because you say so, we will let down the nets. I don't think he was excited. Because you say so. Look, I think this is a terrible idea. But because you say so. I don't think it's going to work. But because you say so. I've tried it and tried it and tried it. I don't know why you think this time's going to be different. But look, I'll try it one more time. Because you say so, we'll do it. I think people are going to look at us when we go back out. They know we've been out fishing all night. Fish don't come in this time of the day. It's at night that you catch the fish. They don't come in the heat of the day. They're going to look at us and they're going to think we don't know what we're doing. But because you say so. And his way not working led him to a humble dependence that is necessary for us to experience the connection that we're meant to have with Jesus. You cannot have that connection with Jesus unless you are humbly dependent on him. And you don't get to be humbly dependent on him until you begin to recognize that your way isn't working and that you can't depend on yourself and you can't depend on people sometimes and on science sometimes and on politics sometimes, or on money sometimes. You can't do that. And when you recognize your humble dependence, it makes way for a deeper connection.